shy? Ja, er ist schon da. Do you know where he went? Has everyone a German translation who needs it? We have 2 interpreters here, and is there still someone needing a translation into German? Because the whole event will be in English otherwise. Okay, apparently not. And we are still waiting for Shai, for one of the 2 panelists. Kommt er? Kannst du ihn anrufen? Nee, er wartet auf Ihre Sicherheit. Warum wartet er auf ihn? Wir brauchen keine Sicherheit. Then I would suggest we just start without Shai, because he already knows the introduction. Okay. Okay, we'll wait. We'll wait 2 minutes. Yeah, he's already been here before, but he had to go downstairs, and he says he needs 2 minutes.
He didn't find him, so he will come immediately, and then we can start.
Okay. Maybe now is the moment to remind everyone to switch off his mobile phone. Soll ich anfangen? Okay. Good evening, everyone. I think everyone is here now. A very warm welcome to the Stadtteilbibliothek Buch. Thank you all for coming. My name is Monika Flores-Martinez. I am the Commissioner against Antisemitism here in Pankow, and I'm honored to be moderating this event today. I also welcome everyone who is joining us on the live stream. Thank you for being here with us digitally. And I am also very delighted that our district mayor, Frau Dr. Cordelia Koch, is here today. And I would like to give her the mic for a brief welcome.
Thank you. Dear Hamza Widi and dear Shai Dashevsky, I hope I pronounced it probably a little bit the way it should be. Hello, everybody. I'm very happy that you're all here. I'm happy to welcome you here to this very important talk, Voices from Israel and Gaza. We thought that in this time of very deep crisis, I should move more to the center. Okay, this makes it more difficult, but okay, this is for the video camera, so I'm sorry I'm standing before you. We thought that in this time of deep crisis, it is important to talk, to have an informed discussion and to have an open dialogue on very severe subjects. And so I hope you will enjoy this evening. This topic is very important for me because some of you might know I lived in Lebanon, so I have experienced the Middle East from very close, from the northern border. And so I have a very specific perspective on the Middle East and on everything that is hampering peace and people from living freely and safely. So this is very important and dear to me. Also, I have visited this year for the first time Israel, which was not so easy for me, coming from the north originally. And I was very delighted to see a country struggling on its way on an Israeli and Arab existence also. I was astonished to see a bilingual country. But what I also visited is not a very good name for that. We went to the places of the 7th of October, of the devastation of the murders, mass murders, and to see the suffering of people. So it was a hard trip, and it's a hard time that we are living in. So, of course, when I heard about this evening, I had to be here. So I'm very happy you all came also. And I thank you very much, both of you, to foster common understanding in times where people split up and societies separate. So I think it is very of utmost importance that people talk to each other who, on the other hand, represent other people who fight. So this is a very important evening for me. And thank you, both of you, for coming to Pankow and talking to the people of Pankow. And I hope you have a good and informative evening. And thank you, Monika Flores, for organizing. Thank you very much.
Here's still some free seats in the first row. Oh, okay. Well, let's begin with our talk. That's easier said than done. Talking about Israel's war against Hamas has become increasingly difficult. This topic has become deeply emotional for many Germans, even though they do not have any direct connection to Israel and Palestine. I have heard of families being divided over this issue, of colleagues who no longer speak to each other after heated arguments, people who have never been to Israel or any other Middle Eastern country suddenly consider themselves experts, and all too often discussions fail to reflect the many perspectives that exist on this war. Even here in Germany, we are becoming more divided, or alternatively, indifferent, avoiding conversations that are crucial to have. And with Donald Trump as the president of the US, things seem to have taken an even more surreal turn. I am sure many of you have seen the AI-generated video he shared showing him sunbathing on the beaches of Gaza. And in recent days, following the termination of the ceasefire with Hamas, the conflict has seen a significant escalation. Israeli airstrikes in Gaza have resulted in around 600 Palestinian deaths. Internationally, leaders from Germany, France, and the United Kingdom have called for an immediate return to the ceasefire and to restart negotiating, condemning the civilian casualties and emphasizing that the conflict cannot be resolved militarily. That makes tonight's event even more important. And despite all the atrocities that we are witnessing, I can feel hope. Tonight we will attempt to do what many people find so difficult, perhaps even impossible. We will listen. We will listen to two persons who come from the region, and, even more remarkably, we will listen to people who are often labeled as enemies. For that, I want to extend a sincere thank you to the project I Am From Israel, Ask Me Anything, for bringing these speakers together. Shai Dashevsky, originally from Israel, now living in Berlin, and Hamza Hawidi from Gaza. Thank you so much for being here with us in Buch tonight. Thank you for your courage, for showing your faces, and for using your voices. So shortly about the structure of the evening. In the first part of our discussion, which will last about 30 minutes, we will get to know our panelists. And in the second part, we will open the discussion to the audience, giving you the opportunity to ask questions and to discuss together. We strongly encourage you to participate and engage in this conversation. If you prefer to ask your question in German, please feel free to do so. We will translate it into English. And here I would like to thank our interpreters. And please have mercy and ignore my imperfect English. And also a quick logistical note, the toilets are located over there, right to the entrance of the library. Also, I would like to ask you not to take pictures during the event. You can take pictures of us afterwards, if you would like to. And lastly, I would also like to thank the police and our security team for being here tonight and ensuring that we all feel safe. Let me now introduce our speakers. I will start with Shai. Shai, your parents immigrated from the Soviet Union to Israel, and you grew up on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. After studying cinema at university, you moved to Jaffa, which is a part of Tel Aviv with a large Arab or Palestinian population. And in 2017, you moved to Berlin, and here you work in catering and offer cooking classes. Since October 7, that's what you told me, everything has changed for you. Hamza, you were born in Gaza City. You are 27 years old. You studied at Gaza University, and in 2019, you began participating in the We Want to Live protests. You've been arrested twice, and you fled to Germany in August 2023 via Greece, so just a few weeks before October 7th. And your family is currently living in Egypt. Did I miss something important? Would you like to add something to introduce yourselves?
We are good, but just to correct you for one thing, I studied at the Islamic University of Gaza because this is an experience that I love to talk about. 5 years were good there, and yeah, so I'm just gonna give the mic to Shai to start introducing yourself.
I mean, everything you said is correct. I studied actually in Sderot. Maybe you know, heard about the city. It's close to Gaza Strip. So for 4 years, I lived in the kibbutz near to Gaza Strip and Sderot too. So I also have some personal connection to what happened on 7th of October. But of course, everyone in Israel have something, somehow connection to it. Yeah, that's maybe the only thing I would add.
This would also already lead me to my first question to you. How did you learn about the events of October 7th? Where have you been? Would you like to start, Shai?
Well, I actually had to work the same day. I remember waking up, watching the news and seeing the videos, and out of morbid curiosity, I opened Twitter, which I didn't have before, and Telegram. And yeah, while this was happening, I also had to prepare to work, which was big dissonance because I was doing a cooking class in the same day about Israeli Arabic food, and I had to be very presentable. That was the day that lasted 3 days without sleeping because I really, I think, scarred myself emotionally watching too many videos. And yeah, that was the first day.
For me, actually, when the before even so before I'm gonna move and talk about the what happened on October the 7th, I'm just gonna start by saying, for me, it's not that easy to be here right now and today, while the war continued and Gaza is being bombed from the south to the north, and a lot of civilians are getting killed. And I can imagine also that it's hard for the Israelis, especially for the families of the hostages who still have sons in Gaza. Gaza is being bombed. No food or water is entering Gaza since like 2.5 weeks right now. So it's not easy for me. And at the same time, it's important. It's important because since October the 7th, there is a big amount of misinformation being on media, on the streets, on the protests, and also false narratives, false portrayals of, we are talking about both sides. So yes, it's hard but important that someone who has hands in this game to talk about it. And when the atrocities of October the 7th happened, I remember that day good because at the beginning of it, it was a good day for me. I was happy that day because I was in Greece in the refugee camp, and we were supposed to receive the asylum documents. So we were a bit happy, but it didn't last long because I couldn't avoid the news. I remember back then I was in a refugee camp with thousands of Palestinians from Gaza City, and they were talking about Hamas's attack against Israel At the beginning, I didn't care that much. I said to myself, it's maybe some rockets, something we got used to during the past years. But with the videos coming, I realized that there is something unusual happening. And from the moment that I started scrolling in the media, at the beginning, I even couldn't believe it. Like for me, yes, I knew how Hamas brutal is. We heard about that. We expected that. But seeing that is something else. And for me, I realized that a part of how disgusting what they did is also me realizing that this is not gonna end well for the Gaza Strip. And I remember back then when I was talking to two of my closest friends, I remember back then that the first thing they told me, we are going to register to leave Gaza because we know how this is gonna end for Gaza, and we can't do anything about it. We can't even say no, that we don't accept it, because if we say that publicly, we're gonna be executed. So we are just gonna leave. It's not our fault. We didn't do that. And back then, and even when I left Gaza, because of what happened to me before, when I left Gaza, I had the idea in my mind that I don't want to hear about Palestine and Israel. I had my enough of this conflict, and I felt that I can't do anything to change it. So I intended not to speak about it until I saw what happened on October the 7th. And for me, the exact moment that I can't also forget, it's the moment that made me speak, is the group of Hamas's supporters and their people who were celebrating what Hamas did. That was something else for me, a part of doing the crime, celebrating it. And I was also in the camp with other people who celebrated, so I couldn't avoid this disgusting scene. And I realized that someone has to speak, because the moderate voices in Gaza can't say that publicly. If someone of them say that I don't accept what Hamas did, he's gonna be executed at the same day. And I'm not just imagining that it happened during the war in Gaza. People who just say stop the war and release the hostages were killed in Gaza. So I know how this might end for the people, and I know that they want someone to speak. And I myself, when I was imprisoned and no one cared about us, I hoped and I wished that someone is speaking about us, about the moderate voices in Gaza. Unfortunately, there wasn't many. So I think this is more than just being active in this conflict. I feel it's a moral obligation for me and other people to speak about this conflict and to tell the people about our experiences about this conflict, that it cannot be portrayed in a black and white scenario. It's more than that. It can't be portrayed in the good and the bad people scenario. There is more about this story.
Could we please go back a little bit to 2019? In my introduction, I told I was speaking about the We Want to Live protests, and you have already brought up this topic as well, but I think most people here haven't heard about these protests. Could you please tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So one of the false narratives that is being promoted right now is, and it's happening, by the way, by the both communities, the pro-Palestinian one and the pro-Israeli one, is the portrayal of the Palestinians in Gaza as if they were 2 million Hamas soldiers or whatever. And this has nothing to do with reality. Actually, before the war, we, the Palestinians in Gaza, we were angry at Hamas and we were looking for an alternative. But unfortunately, and because of Gaza's reality, when we talk about Gaza, we are talking about more than 50% of the population under the age of 18. So never in our life we saw elections or an alternative for a jihadist regime. We didn't even know how real life looks like. So we were looking for an alternative, and we had our enough in 2019 of Hamas's rule, and we wanted an alternative that can get our lives better, get our economy better, maybe to get for a democratic government. So we protested in 2019 against Hamas, and we were not a few hundreds. We were actually in thousands, if not tens of thousands. And our demands were simple. Actually, the movement demand was we want to live. So we didn't have much needs. Our needs were only to live as the wealthy elite of Hamas's members and supporters live in Gaza, and also to have elections that can get us an alternative for Hamas. Unfortunately, this didn't last long. Just a few hours, Hamas sent their militias to us in the streets, beating whoever they saw, arresting as much as they could. And in 1 or 2 days, they arrested more than 3,000 Gazans. And we are talking about Gaza, a 300 kilometer city. It's not Germany, it's not the US. So it was big. And I was one of those 3,000 who were arrested, the criminals who demanded to live in Gaza. And I stayed in their prisons for a few weeks, and it wasn't the best experience to be in Hamas's prisons for a few weeks, because it cannot be even named as a prison. Because in a prison you would have a lawyer, you would see your family, you wouldn't be beaten from the morning to night. But this is this is not the case in Hamas's prison. You would never have a lawyer or a court or a family visit or whatever. It's just you being beaten until you say whatever they want you to say. And until 2023, I kept my head down, because I saw how it ended in 2019, how no one talked about it, how no one cared. And I felt that I'm beating a dead horse. I'm not doing that much. Until in 2023, I couldn't bear that anymore. And I and the people who protested in 2019 tried to form another protest against Hamas, because we realized that because of the economical situation and Hamas's brutal torture of the people of Gaza, something is going to happen. Hamas always exports our problems to Israel or whatever, and we know how it ends, an escalation between Hamas and Israel, and people start to forget about what Hamas was doing. So we expected an escalation, to be honest. We expected something is going to happen, but not what we saw. And we protested in June against Hamas, and also we were in thousands. The same thing happened. No one even noticed that we were protesting, and I was arrested again by them. Also stayed for a few weeks until I was released after paying a bribe. And I said it to myself back then that that's enough about Palestine and Israel. I don't have a magical trick to solve this conflict, so I'm just gonna leave and go to Europe to have a new life, to start from scratch. Until October the 7th happened, and I became active again.
Shai, you also haven't been an activist before October 7th, and you started a project, or you were one of the founders of the project I'm From Israel, Ask Me Anything. Would you like to tell a little bit more about that project and what you did after October 7th?
Yeah, first of all, I have to repeat what I said last time. When I hear the story of Hamza, I have to say thank you for sharing it, because it's, as I said also already a couple times, there's a lot of activists but very few heroes, and I feel like when I hear those stories, it just something that I cannot imagine, and very grateful that we can hear it from firsthand. So thank you. With my project, it was just kind of like natural way of me to try to engage, because as I also said before, until 7th of October, I was out. I was also very disappointed from the politics. I was in a lot of demonstration since I was in high school, even in the West Bank, but also in Israel against the government. Bibi was already there, and Benjamin Netanyahu was in the prime minister, and yeah, so it was very tiring. And I thought, okay, I'm coming to Israel like many other Israelis, thinking I'm going to leave everything behind and not worry about this. And that worked for a while, until 7th of October happened. And yeah, then I thought, okay, I will go to demonstration and demonstrate for peace, saying there should be peace between Israel and Palestine, because seems to me that's the best way to solve it. But and actually I was talking with people about it, and what I noticed and what I was told is, no, don't do that. Not in the pro-Palestinian demos, because it could be dangerous. And that's what I saw. Yeah, like I saw slowly more the acceptance of Hamas, the glorification of 7th of October, the narrative of Hamas being some kind of freedom fighters, disinformation, hate to Israel more than they care about actually Palestinian life. So I thought, okay, I did other things that were connected to the community, but I was not very. We're not doing something active. We're really mainly passive, like, you know, gathering information, what we see on the street, the Hamas propaganda, sending it to the newspapers, politicians, and nothing happened until today. Not much happened, to be honest. So yeah, I thought, okay, I will go and talk to people, and I did it in some student demo that was pro-Palestinian demo, and I noticed I could actually talk with some people, although it was very few, and most of them didn't like me from the beginning. But I managed to get some phone numbers, and I thought, okay, that could be a nice project for our community. And we gathered some people that helped us, and then we went to TU, was the first university that accepted us, and then FU and Potsdam University, HU, UDK, and we had like info stand where we had T-shirts saying, "I'm from Israel, ask me anything," and talking to people and engaging, and it was very, very successful project that we hope to continue. That's how I got to this project.
And how did it come that you two people got together? How did you get to know each other?
I always looked how to expand the project and how to get more people. And of course, coming from left-wing ideology from Israel, I thought, okay, it should be not just Israelis at some point. We have to speak together to make this way of fighting the extremism more strong. And yeah, I was looking for any Palestinian who speak for peace. And I only remember asking everyone I know how to get to Hamza. And finally somebody spoke to him, and I met him, and I thought, okay, we should do something together. And it just worked. I don't know, like, it was natural for me.
Do you share the same version?
That's a smart question. Yes, actually. Actually, since before even I met Shai, since October the 7th, the thing for me was a bit confusing, because at the one hand, I'm a Palestinian, I'm from Gaza, I even was radical to some extent, and at the same time I was opening the TV to see what Hamas did on October the 7th. I was seeing how the Arab media was like portraying the biggest victory Hamas did, how people are celebrating even here in Germany. And at the same time, deep side in myself, I couldn't even accept a single minute of the videos that I saw. I even said it to myself that, yes, we have a lot of problems with Israel. I'm not portraying as if we are like the peace-loving countries. Yes, there is a siege on Gaza, there is hardships, there is to the end of the list, but at the same time, not a single human being can say yes to that. There is nothing at all that can even try to justify what happened. So I was this weird Gazan who was like saying no to what happened, and I was new here in Germany, so I was looking forward to expand my network connection and to work on something productive, something that does not go to the protests in here in Germany or other places to portray the Palestinians as Hamas supporters. So I was looking for everyone who's going against this narrative. I'm not going against the Palestinians, actually. I am a Palestinian, and they have the right to protest or against the war or whatever, but I'm not accepting anyone who's supporting Hamas or spreading anti-Semitism in this protest. So I started to connect with some people until I met Shai, and since then we don't miss any opportunity to do events in Berlin and to talk to the people, on the hope not to change the teams, not to get you from the Palestine side to Israel side or the opposite, but to make any people in your head can accept two realities at the same time. yes, you can say that Hamas did an atrocities that can never be acceptable, and they should be held accountable. The Israeli hostages should be freed, but at the same time, the war in Gaza should stop right now, even yesterday, not even now. The Gaza Strip must be rebuilt, but I'm not calling for a rebuilding for the Gaza Strip to be a proxy for the Iranian regime. I'm talking about rebuilding Gaza Strip to be for the interests of their people. To see my regime building hospitals and schools, not tunnels, not rocket launchers and whatever. And this is the way how I met Shai.
I think I didn't tell you before, but actually this event takes place in the context of the International Weeks Against Racism that we are having here in Pankow. And lately in Germany and also all around the world, anti-Semitism has been contrasted with racism. I often hear the accusation that when I speak out against anti-Semitism, I'm not doing enough to combat anti-Muslim racism. What do you think? What could help ensure that these issues are not played out against each other? Shai, I think in our last conversation you actually compared racism, or you pointed out that many times conversations that you hear, if it wouldn't be about the Jews, everyone would agree on that what is being said is racist. And maybe you also know the book Jews Don't Count, because very often Jews are not included into this anti-discrimination discourse. Maybe you can tell a little bit about this issue or this problem.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot really say much about other types of racism. Yes, of course, exist, but I can say from my own experience that there's a big double standard, unlike other types of racism when it comes to Jewish people. It's hot. Yeah, I thought. For me too. Yeah, so for me it's the double standard for sure. Every slogan I heard since 7th of October somehow got accepted as we're just anti-Zionists, we're not anti-Semitic, we're this, we're not anti-Semitic. While if you just change the Zionists or sometimes Jews to other type of minority, it will be automatically anti-Semitic. Even much less, yeah, for much less things. If you would say something about other minorities, they will be very racist, but somehow the threshold for Jewish people is very high. I can say from my own experience that I talked to people who thought that, you know, all Zionists are Nazis, and it's okay if all of them will be killed. I heard that in universities from students, and I thought, how did they get to it? Like, how come it's okay? Like, and I feel like we're not counted, as you said, we're not counted as maybe minority or something. Once you turn it from Jews to Zionists, it's somehow people who have power, people who behind the scene control the world, and, you know, by all means necessary, there's no discussion then. Especially if you say all of them are Nazis, so you don't have to even explain, yeah? Then you can violently have violent solutions without needing to give explanations. And yeah, of course, if you turn it around, if you say for other minority, it would be racist. And
Could you give an example from what you experienced at the universities?
Well, yeah. First of all, like when people are very much like, and it's coming. I'm saying it as a person who would consider himself anti-Zionist, but I'm not after 7 of October, because once we're not feeling this whole, other people with extreme voices can take over and say what they think is anti-Zionism, and that's what happened. And now the voices that took over are the voices who portrayed all of them as racist, all of them as Nazis, although it's pretty much everyone in Israel, yeah? And it could be a right wing, it could be left wing, but they just portrayed it without any distinction. And what I noted, I had in one university in FU is somebody who said that all Zionists should be killed. We heard that, we recorded it, and when I said, but you know that it's around 97% of the Jews in the world, 95 plus, probably everyone in Israel, and she just said it very loudly so everyone could hear. I don't care if it's a one person, if it's 1% or 99%, all of them. So how can it not be racist? How can this movement who know there's people who scream, especially in Berlin, there's videos of people screaming, kill all the Jews in Arabic, while they protest in the pro-Palestinian demo, they're not distancing themselves. Yeah? Fine, you have 1, 2, 3 occasions like this. You can say they're not belonging to us. That doesn't happen. So I find the double standard the biggest point when it comes to racism against Jewish people, against Israelis, and so on.
Hamza, what's your perspective on this?
So before coming to Germany, I had this feeling that in Germany you can never find anti-Semitism or anyone against the Jews because of Germany's history and the current relations. So I was this naive guy with this thought, and this is actually why I came here, because I said to myself, it's safe for the Jews, so just come in and be with them, and that's it. And I was actually, the Germany was recommended actually by an Israeli friend. That's why I came. And I remember after October, a few weeks after, I was with the same Israeli friend. We were working here in Berlin, and we wanted to go to New Köln to an Arab restaurant. And she had this David Nichols here and there. And before entering New Köln, I noticed her taking it off, and I was like, "Why are you taking this off?" And she told me, "I can't just go in New Köln and get myself problems because they would notice that I'm a Jew." I was surprised back then because I didn't even think that such a thing exists in Germany, to be honest. Until the protests started in Germany, and I started seeing it everywhere online, and I even remember seeing the video about this guy in the protest saying, "Those who have a gun, go and kill a Jew," which I have no idea what it has to do with the current situation. And I saw a lot of disgusting projection portraying the Jews as the Nazis and stuff like that. And this is for me something that I really understand. The moment you start dehumanizing a group, whether it was a Jews or whatever, the moment you start dehumanizing them, you are opening a back door for their suffering. You are just justifying whatever atrocities that can happen to them. So I started, okay, I have a lot of problems with Israel, by the way, but I would never accept such a thing to happen. And for us, the Palestinians, especially the Gazans, once you go to, and I'm not being racist, but once you go to an Arab restaurant or whatever and say you are from Gaza, you have to listen to all the anti-Semitic narratives. And you have to say yes. It would be weird if you said, "No, what are you saying?" I remember being in the barber shop, and the moment he realized I'm from Gaza, he started telling me about the Holocaust and how it should be extended. And I was horrified. But at the same time, I couldn't say anything, to be honest, because I was in this shop that I was worried for my safety, and I realized in my mind that I can't change his mind in a moment. It wasn't the case, and Not only this, but I also notice it because I myself, I am a refugee and I still live in a refugee camp, and I also notice it. Once I mention that I'm from Gaza or something about the Jews, I have to listen to that. And I actually love to blame Germany for that because they don't do anything about the integration for those people. Those people in the refugee camps, the newcomers, it's not that I'm being mean to them, but they have no idea about the history, and they should be taught about the history the same way the Germans are being taught about it, because those people aren't here for a month or two, they are living here with us. And it's not a shame to learn. We all need to learn about one thing or another. But at the same time, I don't accept that to be silenced by saying you are anti-Semitic. I have the right to criticize the Israeli government. I also have the right to criticize the acts of the Israeli army. I also have to criticize the violence by the Israeli settlers in the West Bank. So two things can be true at the same time. You can avoid being anti-Semitic and at the same time you criticize the bad doings of the Israeli government or the army or whatever.
I have already heard some sighing from the audience. Maybe now is the time to open this discussion to the audience. So if you have questions to Shai and Hamza or comments on what has been said, feel free to ask. And of course, Frau Koch is the first one.
Shai, I have one question for you. We heard that Hamza is having a lot of repression on him speaking out loudly. Is everybody accepting what you do? Talk to the Palestinians? Or do most Israeli or Jewish people you know say that this is not the time to talk to Palestinians and to say, hello, I'm Israeli, ask me anything?
I wouldn't say there's a lot of criticism for that. The project I'm from Israel was accepted very good. I think there's a lot of people who are despaired and they don't see the point of doing it. But at least in my circles, people won't call me a traitor or something like this. And I have to say that before 7th of October, I wasn't so proud to be Israeli. And I know it sounds weird because now Israelis are more hated. But I look at the society and I look at the demonstration that happens so long after and people still go in the street. I'm proud. I'm proud of the society that does speak out, that don't accept one voice, that you can have many voices. And I got much more positive reaction for anything that connects to wanted peace than the opposite, at least from my community and the Israeli society.
Actually, I have a lot to say, but I think I'll just stick to the first point that comes to mind. It's simply because I was one of the organizers of the protest against Netanyahu before October 7th. So, I think one of the naive ideas that I at least had in that protest is I felt like to do this in Germany is to show that there is an ability to be critical of Israel without being anti-Semitic. That there is some sort of normal way to talk about these things. And I've noticed back then that we had mostly Israelis. We were open to everybody. We had mostly Israelis, very few German Jews. And in October 7th, so we've become active. We were networked already, so we've become active in a different way. Helping stranded Israelis, and And then I suddenly met a lot more German Jews, you know, and I started to, so I had a very brief moment, moment of seeing them. And then, since then, I understand why they didn't join us. And I'm very sorry for that. I mean, there are still people that are striving exactly for that, to say, you know.
Naomi, can you explain to the others why did the German Jews not join you in the protest against Netanyahu?
The German Jews, well, they each speaks for themselves, but they are very suspect of any criticism of Israel, exactly because they recognize the anti-Semitic intonation in a lot of it. They were just suspicious of it. They said, well, you know, they were clearer. They were more clear about what that would mean in the larger context, in the German-speaking environment.
It sounds a bit like a paradox. Like if you're not Israeli and you demonstrate against Bibi or the government, you could be considered anti-Semitic. But at the same time, the Israelis love to do that. But we're not. Are we anti-Semitic then?
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, that's the point. It's hard to explain it to people that they can do it without being anti-Semitic. Yeah. But they're afraid. There's a fear. I think, if I interpret it correctly.
It's more than that. I think the Israel-Palestine conflict in Germany, within the German society, has had an emotional weight for a long time. My sense, coming here, is that I felt like there was more emotion and less facts, which with each side that ever talked about it, you know, and I found it also very interesting that within the politics, in every party there was a pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli division, right? So it wasn't a left or right thing. It was just something, and it's just one of those things, and it's beyond what it means to us, as it's probably humanly possible. I hope I'm.
Thank you so much for pointing that out, this difference between Israelis in Berlin or Germany and German Jews, or yes. And actually, after our last conversation, I was asked by someone from the audience why we did not invite any German Jewish person into the circle, and maybe this would be a very good thing for our next event. Are there more questions from the audience? Marita.
Hello. I don't know how to formulate well my question, because I come from a community that doesn't have nothing to do with your cultures and history and everything. I come from Peru, South America, but of course we are faced with international communities as well in Latin America. And so I know many people from Palestine and many people, so when we see Shakira, now it's very important for the Arab world in Latin America, and from the Jewish community as well. So we are connected somehow. My impression is that here in Germany is still very, is still a complex topic, when, especially after the 7th of October, to discuss openly about the whole situation. Also for migrants like me. Because I also have my own background, own experience with Jewish people and with Arab people in my country. And we have to learn all the time how to communicate to each other. I have I would say, the luxurious situation, the luxury that I work with many communities in Pankow. So I have to communicate with so many cultures and so many languages every day, that then I think it helps me to be open also in those critical situations. And what I see as a big challenge is how to make those fights more international. Also to connect to us who are not Jewish or Muslims. How to connect all these fights against racism, because for us it's also your problems are our problems as well. And we have to learn to understand also the situation. And I see that sometimes when we talk only about Jewish or Arabs or Muslims or whatever, it's always a reduction of a whole complex topic that is connected to the human beings, no? And this is something. And the other question, it was a comment, the other was a question. I am very connected to multilingual settings and work, and maybe it's a bit naive, the question, but what is your common language when you fight together? And because, why I ask, because if we assume that it's English, it means that you are more connected maybe to academic background people. And my question was if you are somehow promoting some multilingual projects where also people with no academic background take part of the whole activism.
Thank you. Actually, I think that the issue of Palestine and Israel is well spread in most of the world right now, so we should be interested in minimizing it, not getting it bigger. But the thing about it is you don't have to be expert about Palestine and Israel's history. It's more about the human values that you believe in, more than it's about picking the teams, the Palestinian or the Israeli one. So it's values that judge if people should be kidnapped from their homes and stay in tunnels for over than a year and a half, or to accept seeing children being killed over day and night, and in terrible situation. So I think it's more about the values, and as we criticize, as I told you, I tend a lot to criticize the Israeli government, the army, the settlers, but there are lines that I should never cross. And those lines are about the values that I just told you about. There are lines that I should never make an anti-Semitic criticism of Israel, or to generalize my criticism to the Israeli community as a whole, because we Palestinians and Israelis, we are like normal communities. It's not that hard. Yes, we are, the majority are moderate people, but we also have crazy radicals in our societies that we must criticize. We shouldn't actually be silent about them, because the moment we start being silent and not criticizing those people, we are just giving them the green light to continue whatever they are doing, to continue being our nightmare, actually, as we are in Gaza living this nightmare since 2006 with Hamas. And I don't want to compare it, but something similar, at least, for the Israelis with the Netanyahu government. I mean, we are talking about someone who's being in court for corruption since 2019, maybe, and until the moment, and whenever he has a testimony or whatever in the court, he escalates the situation and waits for the war to end. So I think we should criticize those parties, not to be silent about whatever they are doing.
I don't have much to add.
Thank you a lot for telling us your perspectives. I have some more questions, because Hamza, you already said you criticize the Israeli government and the settlements, and you, Shai, you already said that you're more from the leftish political side in Israel. So I find it really, really wonderful that you two are coming together and communicating, and it's a really important step towards somehow a solution. But sometimes I ask, now there's this crazy American president philosophizing about Gaza not being for Gazans anymore, and there's a war against the whole Palestinian civil population as well. Everybody is bombed. So I'm sometimes asking myself, like, of course, we should not forget what happened on October 7th, and that there are still Jewish Israeli hostages in Palestine. And I noticed that there are Israeli demonstrants against Bibi and the government as well. But still, I'm asking: is it more the leftish side of Israeli population that is demonstrating against this and the families of the hostages, or is it like a broader, a wider part of the population? Because I think it cannot be a solution that Gaza should be like free of Gazans anymore, and this war now against everybody is continuing until everything is like made free land or US American land or whatever, and also like the settlements which are still making Palestinians flee their country. And so I'm sometimes asking myself, is it just a little part of the Israeli population demonstrating against the government, or is it by now maybe a majority?
I'm not sure I got the question right. If it's specific percentage or it's more than 50%. Like I cannot say. I don't know. All I can say is that it was always there before 7 of October, and that's maybe what people say. What helped 7 of October is that Israel was in almost total chaos because of massive demonstrations against the government and the policies they wanted to pass. And I see it kind of a continuation of this movement. And I don't know, I'm 40 years old. I remember, like, you know, since Rabin was still alive, and there was, I don't know, 400,000 people in the streets celebrating peace in a country of 8 million people. Less than 8 million? I think it was like percentage-wise one of the biggest demonstration ever happened anywhere in the world. Like it was almost 500,000 people on the street. Anyway, for me, I always seen a movement, civil movement against right-wing government or any government that does something wrong or undemocratic. But again, we can sit here all day long, and that's what we do. I have to say that's why I didn't go to the demonstrations against Bibi. I heard about them because that's all we do, the Israelis, and we have to, and I have to. Somehow this thing didn't left me since the beginning, where you were saying about introducing ourselves. And you said that the war started again, and yeah, it could sound very harsh, but I just don't understand why we're not putting enough pressure on Hamas. I just don't get it. If I need to sit here and criticize Bibi or the settlers, no problem. I can do that. I do that all the time. It's easy. Every time they go and they push some people and their sheep and you know, harass Palestinians. Why it shouldn't be the same thing about Hamas? They knew what will happen after 7 of October. They knew very well that this is only the thing they have. And the UN, when they condemn, I condemn the UN for allowing that, for not being putting enough pressure on Hamas, because they allow it. Hamas see it, and everyone who demonstrate for Hamas, they just allow it to continue, not criticizing Hamas. They know what will happen, and Hamas say it. They say when they say jihad, there's only one meaning for this. It's they willing to sacrifice people, and a lot of them don't even are in Gaza Strip. And when they say jihad, they mean other people will die, and that's a good thing for them. And people just in the West don't understand it. So for me, yeah, we can talk about Bibi all the time, no problem. But we have to remember that who started and who can end also this war today.
Hi. I'm gonna speak transparently because I like to speak transparent, and if I make any mistakes and I say something wrong, I'm very open to told it. Um, I think if I didn't get wrong, you spoke about some different kind of Zionisms, or is it true? Or like I don't know. The thing is that as long as I am just consuming, I am not consuming German media, of course, because it's impossible for me. And as long as I'm not consuming the general capitalist media, because it's impossible for me, I just try to consume media that are anti-capitalist and anti-colonialist. And this tends to be, well, it's 100%, I think, pro-Palestinian.
Of course.
Because it's what I need somehow. The thing is that when they speak about Zionism, it's understood that this is obviously something very completely wrong on it.
Can you tell me what you hear? Tell me what is Zionism from your left-wing anti-imperialist perspective and social media, probably, because you.
I probably don't know. I don't know maybe the good meaning of it, but I would say I can do a definition with the connections that I can make. But I would say that Zionism is the ideology that Jews has. Maybe I'm going to be more wrong and more wrong, but maybe the Jews has the right to protect themselves and to colonialize wherever they can, to have their own space and do whatever they can, colonializing or killing people in Gaza, everybody, or in order to save themselves.
Is there a place where Jews can be without colonializing?
I have no idea.
Can you not imagine one place, like let's say Jerusalem, I don't know, like somewhere where Jews came from, that they can just be there without calling it colonialization? One city, 1 kilometer on earth, or every place is colonializing?
No, not at all. But the thing then if this place exists, why is it happening what it's happening in Gaza?
Why is it happening?
Why is it happening a colonialist experience?
Now what's happening in Gaza is just colonial expansion of Israel, you think?
As long as I've been, well, I don't know. Maybe you can tell me.
Can I just say, like, for us, what is Zionism? For the Jews, for 97%, if you want to hear from us, I think the best thing is to ask the person who calls himself this thing, is just to live in the ancestry land of the people who are what we consider indigenous also to the place. Doesn't mean other people are not indigenous, but let's say like this: if Israel was existed anywhere outside of Israel, I would not be supporting Israel. I would also see it as a colonial entity. But there is no other place that Jews belong than Israel. Yeah, you can think maybe 1 kilometer there or 1 kilometer there, but Jews were always living there for 3,000 years. It's not Uganda like Herzl wanted. That's why it didn't happen in Uganda. So for us, I would say 90+% of Jewish people, that is the natural place where we should be. And when I said there's different kind of Zionism, it means we all consider ourselves in some way Zionists because we believe we have the right to live in this land. But it doesn't mean if you're left or right, religious or not religious, secular, not secular, all of us are in the same boat. We in Israel, we don't differentiate. It doesn't mean you have some political agenda specifically. It's just the belief that you can live freely and protect yourself, yes, of course, but you have the right to live there. The fact that other people consider it as colonialism, that's not how we see it.
I also just want to add a small point to the question and the answer because I came across this point of Israel as a colonial project or whatever like 1 million times since October the 7th, and for me actually, and with all respect, I think those are like empty discussions because we are talking Israel has been there like for 80 years, and unlike other conflicts, for example the Algerian and the French conflict, the French people had a place to go back to at the end of the day, and they did. But when talking about Israel, I can't think of a place that they can go back to. And actually, I'm thinking of at least the majority in Israel, I'm talking about more than 50% Arab Jews, those were expelled from their lands simply because of being Jew, whether we are talking about 1948 or 1976. Anyway, this history, I think it does not matter a lot because the point is that Israel and Palestine should exist. And none of them is going anywhere. I'm not expecting 7 million Jews to pack their bags and go to Mars. They are there. And we are also, the 7 million Palestinians are there. So the question is how to get those two communities together, not to think of imperial or non-imperial, because at the end of the day, it's not going to take us anywhere, you know?
Actually, I wanted to say the same. The discussion has to be on a whole different level. I mean, it's already third, fourth generation on both people. And I also want to go back to Rabin, and also maybe it gives a little bit hope. I just think when I was a child, my parents are also lefties. When I was a child, I was promised there's no army by the time I'll be 18. Of course, there was an army, and I'm 44. And I also really remembered the night Rabin was murdered. I was 15. It was one of the most horrible nights for me. I think we all believed there will be peace. And I also think it's a source of hope because there are specific groups and radical people that brought us where we are now. We were in a better place already. Not that it would mean that after 1 year there would be peace, but we were on the right track. So maybe there is hope to go back to the right track. Yeah, but it can only happen when we do it together. Yeah.
Thank you for the question, by the way. I didn't want to come out.
Yeah, and you're really brave too.
No, I think it's very important because when I do the info stands, that's what I see. I talk to people and I ask them where they got. I'm not saying that's what happened in this case, but a lot of times it's political idea, it's ideology, and of course every movement. And I was in the left, very radical left, and I heard a lot. I even spread the same thing myself at some point without even noticing. And it's not something, once you're in a political movement, it's very hard to get out of it because it's like, it makes you feel like, of course, if you're anti-imperialistic, anti-capitalistic, all the great things, that's such a high and rush, and it makes you feel good, and also like demonizing something without really looking behind what's, and confronting and debating. So I'm happy that happened because that's exactly what I have many times in universities, not all the time, but I have a lot of people that continue the discussion with me later, even though we don't agree, because they really ask, they really want to know, they really want to hear, and get out of the echo chamber. We are very stuck in the echo chambers. So thank you.
Thank you. I want to get back to my question before. and your answer. Just to make it clear, I'm not, or I don't want to justify Hamas at any point. I know that not me or probably not anybody here is going to find a solution for this conflict, which is lasting very long. But I try, as probably many of us, to find a construct in my head. How could it work somehow? So one thing that I was asking myself is, okay, do Israelis also want to, you say you do this, you say there are mass demonstrations on the street. So I asked, okay, is it like a common opinion that the politics there, the government politics should change? You said maybe first we should ask, put more pressure on Hamas. Of course, like Hamza said, doing this in Palestine is dangerous for everybody doing it. So you said the UN should do it, maybe all of us should do it, but who could really put so much pressure on Hamas to end this war? And how could both of them live together? Like, I don't know, I felt in the last years that I somehow read news about it, that it was difficult for the Palestinians to feel like they could freely move in Israel, even if they were like civilians and not Hamas. But don't understand me wrong, I don't want to justify Hamas on this point.
No, I didn't say you want to. Maybe I used it to also talk about something else that is connected in many ways. If I can actually say something you said that last time, if it's okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but you got messages from people from Gaza saying thank you for speaking out, because here you can do more than people can do in Gaza or probably also in the West Bank. They cannot openly talk about life under Hamas rule. And if he needs to come here and talk about it, and we need to help it, we need to help those voices and not suppress them and not give the other narrative of the same people who want the suppression come here and then demonstrate for Hamas, for the same regime that the people are running away from, ran away from before 7th of October. So my point was more about what we want to stand for, yeah? And sadly, okay, now it seems like the majority, it took over the very radical voices. But what I meant is that we should give more power to the other voices who criticize, and together maybe put pressure in a way that, political pressure, and yeah, hopefully that this will work, because the other way is just give them more legitimacy to continue.
You just want to also add a small point, since we are talking about criticizing Hamas in Gaza and the West Bank and Europe. Actually, Europe, it's not becoming not safe actually. But the thing, as far as I understand, Hamas, like from my living in Gaza, from studying in their university for 5 years and a half, and the thing for Hamas that they wouldn't care about what the government says. They wouldn't care what the German government says or the French or the American one, but what they care for is the society, what they see in the streets. And this is actually why would you notice, if you noticed, Ismail Haniyeh, Hamas's leader, thanking the protesters in the US. Abu Ubaida, the spokesman of Al-Qassam, he also thanked the protesters. Another Hamas guy also thanked the protesters. And even their leader, Yahya Sinwar, was talking about isolating Israel internationally, also by the protests in the streets. So this is open actually for Hamas, and they like it because they feel that they are accepted. Not only they don't care actually that much about what is happening in Gaza, but they care to portray for the world that we are being accepted by everyone. We are the Palestinians, and everyone who goes against this narrative is no longer a Palestinian or a less Palestinian. So for them, those protests are open and is being used actually. And if we are going to make Hamas understand how rejected they are, we should also support other protests. I'm not talking about changing the teams, but I'm talking about a clear protest that says that they are terrorists. I don't care if it was Israeli, Palestinian, or Hindu. I don't care, but it should be clear that those people are terrorists and they should leave Gaza not only for the sake of the hostages and their families and the Israeli community, but also for the sake of the Gazan society, because I'm talking about a society who has been living with a terrorist regime for 20 years. This is more than the Germans lived with Nazi Germany. So it shouldn't be that normalized. It shouldn't be to accept of not criticizing Hamas. It should be normalized more and to support anyone who goes against their narrative, whether that was in a street, in a library, or whatever.
I think we still have time for one last question. Of course, the discussion doesn't end here, but for today we still have...
Thank you. What's your evaluation of the German response? So you'll be living in Germany, and we talk a lot about people and groups. What's your evaluation or your perception of German institutions, of German politics, German media, which of course is a broad spectrum, but I would like if you could spend a couple of words about that from your perspectives. You both, I mean.
Actually, for me, it's not that comforting, because on the one hand, there is me with my mentality, with the guy going against Hamas, but at the same time calling for the human rights and the sovereignty, the independence of Palestine at the end of the list. But at the same time, I experienced racism in Germany. I experienced racism simply for being Palestinian, to be honest. And even here in Berlin, I remember one of our friends, when we talked about me renting a shared room here, I was rejected twice because I'm Palestinian. So I experienced racism. I experienced that in some institutions, and even when talking about some news, without naming newspapers, I also feel the sense of racism against the Palestinians, because yes, I want to condemn Hamas. I call for the release of the hostages. I call for the end of the war. But at the same time, when I see the covering of some German news media, I think it's biased and one-sided. Somehow, I understand some of it, but as I said also, it shouldn't be normalized. This racism is right now being used against the Palestinians. With other time, it will be used against other minorities. So any racism should never be accepted, whether it was against Palestinians or any other group.
Yeah, I'm just not sure about the question. Like, do you mean the historical responsibility of Germany because of, let's say, the Holocaust, or or just general what Germany should do, or?
I'm thinking concretely on the handling of, for instance, protests since October the 7th, and the response to both rising anti-Semitism and rising anti-Muslim racism. What do you make of how can we answer better, or how can cultural institutions, government, institutions of Germany, politics, what would you criticize, what would you find good?
It's hard to answer. I can just say from my experience in the community, what we try to change. Sadly, we didn't see any change. I'm all for demonstration and free speech, and even people who, I don't know, like everyone can really say whatever they want, even if it's denying the Holocaust. I'm not gonna say, it's not allowed, but it should be very, very much criticized and pointed out, and have consequences. And we don't see it. I just know, maybe it's not something everyone knows, but I can show in private. But there's a lot of people who advocate for terror organization in Germany, jihadist terror organization, openly, online and on the street, and calling for as we mentioned, to kill Jews, yeah, openly. There's videos, and there's no consequences. So at that point, I don't think it's enough. Maybe we're not loud enough. There's not enough Jews, but it's bad for the German society. And the same thing here. If that's gonna be normalized, then what else gonna be normalized? So for me, it's not enough.
Thank you for allowing me to just add one more thing. But I think if we're talking about what power politicians have, it's to cooperate with the moderate voices, and I think in some areas in Berlin, exactly that hasn't been happening. Right? We have a queer mosque. It's been closed, more or less, since October. There are also moderate mosques in Germany, and the idea is you cooperate with them. You don't isolate them as well. I think that would be the best policy in Germany, and that's from the politicians.
Yeah, you talk about Syrian Atesh or Moshe, the Liberale Moshe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good example, because the woman who opened this Moshe, this mosque, for 18 years now, have to live 24 hours with security people everywhere she goes, because they tried to assassinate her decades ago, 18 years ago, I think. And I think it's the only Liberale Moshe. No? There's more? Okay, but not many. At the same time, you have a lot of places that promote, as I said, Muslim Brother narrative and jihadist narrative, and they get a lot of funding from Qatar. They have no problem to spread their message. They have their events. And yeah, I think the government should balance it with those voices that definitely they should at least give more place for the moderates. And it doesn't need to be normalized that a woman who opened in Berlin, it should be the most liberal city in Europe, that the person who opened this kind of mosque have to live with security. It should not be normal.
Thank you so much for your questions, and thank you for being so honest and so open. And last time we had this conversation, I tried to end on a happy note. Today I will not, because I think we failed. And would you like? We failed to find a happy note on this topic, and maybe sometimes it's just not possible. I had to realize that. But I think in my introduction I said that this evening or these kind of events give me hope. And I think it's something a feeling with which we can all go home now. I think we have to continue the discussion. I hope you will come back to Pankow. I think the funding is going on a little bit more, and I hope we will have more talks like this here. It would also be very interesting to discuss the question whether or why Israel is not a colonialist project, because I think we cannot leave this discourse to social media. We should have a more scientifically based discussion on this, and I hope we will get an event where we can discuss this, because I think it's a question that many people have also here in Pankow, and I think it's something that's very, very relevant also for the Latin American community. And yeah, once again, I want to sincerely thank you. And one thing I forgot, are there comments or questions on the live stream? There aren't. Okay. And then there's nothing left on my paper than to say get home safely and have a good night and see you soon.
Can I add something? Hello? No, I don't want to live in a bad note. Maybe it was a little bit more honest today, maybe, than last time, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing to sit and, like, when I do the events in the universities, I always say, like, even if I get like people scream at me and people saying really horrible things, the majority are very respectful, and I get a feeling I did something. Than a day that nothing happened. So I always have a good feeling doing those events, and I think that this maybe in the future will be normal. So for me, it's like some kind of glimpse to the future of Germany or Berlin, of our movement, or peace movement, some kind of peace movement that is broader. So I don't know how you feel, but I feel very positive. That's one thing. And also we have another event already coming up. So if you have more questions, if you want to bring friends that couldn't come or something, you can just, I can give you my information and give you more info about, update you when there's more events like this. We have one in UDK, which is going to be big. We're going to have a big hall in the university, and also in Potsdam. So, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks for ending. It was, of course, very rude from my part not to give you the last words. I'm German. I'm sorry. That explains it. Hamza, would you like to add something? Or I would like to give you the final words.
Israelis are ruder. Actually, I don't have much to add, but if I only can add one thing is to stop portraying this conflict as a black and white scenario, as a colonial or non-colonial scenario, because whether it was true or not, I don't see how such a discussion would add something to the conflict. I would say, okay, Israel is totally colonial. Okay, Israel is 100% not colonial. How can that change something in the conflict at the end of the day? Whether I'm talking about a solution or I'm just trying to dig down through this conflict, because if you looked at any country on God's earth, you would find the problems from the US to Australia to Germany to whatever. And the emergence of this conflict, the Palestinian-Israeli one, we should also always remember that it came out post the Ottoman rule in the area. And back then, most, if not all the Arab countries did not have their independence until Lebanon 1945, Syria I think 46 or 43. So most of the Arab countries had their independence at similar years. Israel at 1948. We fought about the same piece of land, and we shouldn't portray that as if it was like an unsolvable conflict or the conflict that can never be resolved, because we are not the weird two communities who are fighting. It happened with the Turkish and the Greek people. It happened with the Kurds, who still don't have a state until the moment. So it happened. I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm saying that we are not the weird people and it can be solved. Yes, I'm the naive guy who's calling for peace.
I think something that we should discuss is I don't want to criticize or to have a position, but I only said that maybe there is a moment to put into question this project of nation state. But it created many conflicts in the world, not only in your case. After the independence of territories in my continent, start the civil wars. Amazing. How is it possible? And until now, we live in the same territory. We like to talk about territories, not about states and nation states. But it's an open philosophical discussion, maybe, for Europe.
Yeah, maybe for a next event. With pleasure.